what this festival was doing, promoting the culture of Lahore and Pakistan. I just recall last year when I went through the United States of America, and I went through passport controls very nicely, and then they saw my Pakistan visa. They said, "What are you doing going to Pakistan?" I said, "I went for a literature festival." The guy said, "Literature? Pakistan?" And I thought, there's a lot to be learned. And places like this are really making it happen, so I'm so glad to be here and participate in it. It's also wonderful for me. I'm Rachel Dwyer. I'm Professor of Indian Culture and Cinema at SOAS, School of Oriental and African Studies. I hope we've got some alumni here today. I've seen one of my PhD students already doing a PhD on Pakistani cinema. And these events do so much, I think, to promote these relationships. Not just promoting Pakistan culture within Pakistan, but globally, and particularly across the border. And so for me it's very exciting today to be here to chair what I think is one of the most important cross-border cultural events. One of India's most famous international filmmakers, Mira Nair, who has made a film of one of Pakistan's most famous novelists, Mohsin Hamid. They need no introduction, and they don't need the wrong kind of introduction, so I hope we can give them the right kind of introduction to match the right kind of welcome which you've just given them. And really to have this collaboration, I think, really marks a big cultural shift in recent years, and let's hope it's one of many. But Mira, I'm sure many of you have been familiar with her work since the late 80s, Salam Bombay. I remember going to see that at the London Film Festival, and just, we'd seen Satyajit Ray, we'd seen Bollywood, but we'd never seen anything like Salam Bombay. And just seeing that film, which made people sit up and think. People talk about Slumdog Millionaire and Catherine Booth's book on the slums, but this was really, I think, one of those films that gave a voice to those people and really made them characters. They didn't just appear and skip across the screen, but they really made a long-lasting impression in our hearts. And from Salam Bombay, the other film which I have to say I loved, Monsoon Wedding, though, everybody says. Monsoon Wedding, I actually happened to be at a Bollywood wedding, staying in the hotel with the cast and crew at the same time, so I had this very weird double life going on. At one of Yash Chopra's family weddings at the same time, so I felt I was living a double life. And this is a film which, when everybody says to me, I say, "Have you seen a Hindi film?" They always say, "Yes, Monsoon Wedding," and I say, "Well, they're not all quite like that, it is a bit different." But among these many famous films Mira's made, I think one of the things that I found very engaging is that she's made a number of works of fiction come to life, and this skill of adaptation, whether it's theatre to screen, but in her case a novel to screen, so it can be British fiction. Thackeray, most of us thought he was a politician in Bombay, but it turned out he's also an English novelist. Bringing Vanity Fair to the screen, bringing the namesake to the screen, very Bengali atmosphere, and then to Mohsin's novel. And Mohsin's novel, I remember reading Moth Smoke many years ago. There's a book crying out to be made into a film also, I believe. Really wonderful piece of work, and I'd read The Relunctant Fundamentalist. In fact, I met Mohsin in London because a friend made that awful statement, awful question you dread, can I bring a friend to dinner? And you think, oh no, please. And this is my friend Fikatu Mehta, who wrote Maximum City. So I said, all right then, he brought Mohsin. So now I welcome that question. Please bring a friend to dinner, especially if they're like Mohsin Hamid. And The Reluctant Fundamentalist, I mean, I don't need to tell you, is a book that everybody talked about. I mean, selling in millions, I believe now, isn't it, Mohsin? Be honest, yes. I mean, a book really that people have read and people talk about that raised so many issues and yet kept them within the novel. And for you two to come together, people who were well known, but well known for very different things. I mean, this is a story I'd love to hear more about today. So, can I begin with you? How did this happen?
Well, it happened because I was invited to Lahore for the first time to Pakistan in 2004-2005. A young man, I don't know if he's here, Ali Sethi, kind of changed my life. He invited me, and you know, it's hard as a child of modern India to cross that border so easily. But my father was a Lahori, and he was a government college guy. He was raised in Lahore, educated here, and he passed away the week we finished the film, so it's dedicated to him. But I had never been, so when we came, I came with my husband, Mamdani, and our son, and we had the most extraordinary immersion and embrace and incredible sense of familiarity also, a sense of real home, and that is why I wanted immediately to make a film about this contemporary Pakistan that I had not yet encountered myself and certainly never encountered on screen, and was immediately drawn to that idea. And about 18 or 12 months later, Ali also brought me the unprinted manuscript, a galley copy of Relunctant Fundamentalist, which when I read, it was an instant connection, because not only did it give me the springboard to make that portrait of a contemporary Pakistan, but also was inherently a dialogue with America. And like Mohsin, I've lived half my life in the subcontinent and half my life in New York City, and really lament that you never hear the other side, you know, and you certainly never hear it in a story that actually is, in my thinking, and I think in Mohsin's book as well, inherently is a dialogue, because we are in dialogue, and unfortunately that dialogue is now far more loaded and militaristic, but there is no sense of two human beings confronting each other in a drama or in a situation that needs to be, I think, told. And so I called Mohsin, and we had lunch. You accepted my offer. I didn't bring a friend to lunch. I just and I was in London. I think I flew to London to see him, and we had lunch, and it was, I would say, pretty instant. It was a bestseller already by then, and there was a bidding war, and I didn't even ask for a discount. I just paid the whole thing.
She asked for a discount later.
I'm getting the discount now. But that's how it happened. He was wonderful and gave it to us pretty instantly. And then began the real saga of bringing it to screen, because as you all know, it's a monologue, and we had to invent the dialogue, we had to invent the American character, we had to invent a number of things, and the process of adapting this particular book took 3 years, and that's the longest I've ever had to work on a screenplay. But fortunately we had Mohsin as one of the writers, and Ami Bogani, and then William Wheeler, a professional screenwriter in Los Angeles, and we wrote, I think, the first 2 drafts. One draft was in London, then I came to Lahore, and we sat in Mohsin's father's study and worked for weeks, and did the second draft, and then the third draft, and then there were, I think, about 7 drafts by the time we finished actually making the film. So that's just a small appetizer of what the real saga was, but if you people are interested, I'm happy to talk more about how many times the financing fell apart.
And what was it like, you spent a long time writing that book? And then another 3 years on top of that.
Mira was talking about how it took 3 years to adapt it. It took me 7 years to write it. And so Mott's book took 7 years as well. And I think Douglas Adams, author of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, says the secret to flying is throwing yourself at the ground and missing. And so the way that I write is I throw myself at the ground and hit, again and again and again until eventually I miss. This novel was very difficult to write because when I started writing Relunctant Fundamentalist, it was July, it was in the first half of 2001. So September 11th hadn't happened. And I was living in New York, and I was writing a story about a Pakistani guy who lives in New York, works in this big company, and grows a beard and goes back to Pakistan. It was just a quiet kind of fable. And I showed it to my agent in December of 2001 when I faced the draft, and he said, it's not very good, and also, I don't really buy it. Why would this very, secular, well-off, well-assimilated Pakistani guy feel this animosity, towards America? What's this Muslim guy, he's in New York, but why is he feeling pissed off? Anyway, then about a month or two later, September 11th happened. And then a couple of months after that, my agent called me, the story about the Muslim guy was pissed off at the man.
It's bonanza.
And so but the problem was that my little quiet fable wasn't meant to be an introduction to September 11th. It was meant to be a kind of a story about longing for home and a question about working in the business world and a kind of coming of age. And then suddenly this huge thing began. September 11th, the war in Afghanistan, the war in Iraq, etc. So I had, for a long time, kept writing this novel, keeping it set before September 11th. And I tried writing it in different ways, in an American accent and third person. And after a few years had passed, and I was working on the novel, and I was living in London then, and I'd come back to the hall in the middle, and I went to London again. And I tried to figure out how to make this thing work, and two things became apparent. The first thing was that in the novel initially, the idea was we get to Pakistan in the end, an Pakistani guy living in America, and eventually he goes back to Pakistan. Sorry if I just ruined the book or movie for anybody, but that's the basic plot. And Pakistan didn't really appear until the end of the book. And so two things happened at that point. I decided to make it a frame where we have a Pakistani guy talking to an American guy. And so we're in Pakistan, the entire novel. The novel is basically a conversation. I like to call it, it's a thriller where nothing thrilling happens. And so that's going on. And then there's the need for this voice. And so one of the big challenges for the film was that in the novel, so much of the potential tension comes from how this guy speaks. And he basically speaks, Chingiz in the novel, sort of speaks like, we all know, a kind of very anglicized Lahori accent, which is sort of like super British, but ostensibly from Lahore. And it was meant to convey a kind of longing for being an upper class person, his family's broke. But also the voice was meant to sort of convey, in a way, it was meant to play with a kind of stereotype about Islam, that many people who are not Muslims, if you say, what do you think Islam is, or Muslims are like, often what you'll hear is that, that it seems like a very formal system, really rigid and rule-based. It sounds kind of, it keeps you at a distance, it's dangerous. So I wanted to have a voice that was very formal, seemed to belong to the past in a way. And because it was so formal, potentially dangerous. Anyway, that took a bunch of years, and Mira will tell you later about how those two choices, having this frame and having the character develop this voice, made it a ridiculously difficult novel to adapt. But finally, when I made those changes, the book started to work, and that was 6-7 years into it, and then shortly after Mira appeared on the scene.
So Mira, the 3 years was partly, obviously, the financial backwards and forwards. You know, even if you're, no?
That happened after the 3 years.
Oh.
Then apart in the 4th and the 5th year. The 3 years was, you know, any filmmaker looks at a book, or I do, I should say, as a springboard to a world that I want to live in and inhabit. And so first I bring to it what I need. For instance, the family in Mohsin's book is a greatly endearing family, but I wanted to very much get into the family life, the intricacies of the family life, the love in the family, the fact that there are families who don't want their sons to go to America. What is the point? People who don't believe in the pursuit of money. I love that, you know, I love those values. And I love also things like the music, the modern sound of Pakistani music was a huge inspiration for a long time for me. But so I wanted to make a film which had all those ingredients. You know, Pakistani women, women I love, and women here I just felt were so spirited and gorgeous and beautiful and opinionated and complicated. You know, full of tamasha, and it was just like not what you think it's going to be. And women pretty much all over the world, I think, are like that, but Pakistani women take it into a whole other level. The men aren't bad either. But, so I wanted to do all this, you know, using his novel, using the world of Mohsin's novel. So first it comes to that kind of how do you embellish or how do you create that world that is implied in the novel, but how do you make it happen? For instance, I never knew that, and also these kind of films about the Muslim world rarely have women in them, and even in Mohsin's book, Chinggez had a brother, and I thought I want to, wink and pay homage at the women I am encountering and loving. So that's why we created Misha Shafi's character with Jatin Bond chick. Who would ever imagine Pakistan there's a longest running Bond chick on a television comedy show. And so I did things like that to sort of help my own thing. But the main thing in the 3 years was actually inventing the character of the American. Because Mohsin very cleverly and effectively makes it a monologue, because he wants us to question what how we view the other side and how we all come with our preconceptions. But how do we make Bobby Lincoln in our film a real flesh and blood character? And that's what really took us a long time to find the truth of it. And again, that character is someone I've been interested in for a long time in many of my films, because I love that idea of, I ask that question, can a settler become a native? Can a Gora come here and really, and we know so many from the Fraser brothers down who have completely become a part of our subcontinental culture, the language, everything, but can they ever be fully a native? That question I could make many films on, So Bobby Lincoln became also a receptacle of that type of person, who's genuinely someone who's a scholar of this place and a lover of this place, but because of the politics of today, it becomes something different, So the invention of that world and then creating this, well, he says it's a thriller that nothing thrilling happens and that won't sell a single ticket. So how do you keep the enigma, the mystery, the tension of that thriller, which it really is, the novel, and how do you, so that was the line for me, is that tightrope, is he or isn't he? Who is Chinggez? Is he this or is he that? Who is Bobby? Is he this or is he that? And that tightrope is actually very hard to invent and create and sustain. And that was the big litmus test in all our drafts, is how we creating that tightrope, are we on keeping the audience never knowing, until we need to know. That and another final thing of the ambiguity of the ending of the novel, which of course I loved, but it's very hard to do unless you're Alain René or someone amazing. I didn't know how to do that, and I thought that it was important for me to make a more of a statement of a community, for the end. So then we invented the character of Samir, the apolitical, lovely guy who's not engaged in the drama of the world. He just wants to be there, and how an innocent gets. I guess people have seen the movie, but they just say, what happens to him, we don't know. But, so that was my idea of trying to sort of make a comment by the end that is more clear than ambiguous.
I mean, it's interesting how much, when you think when you make a film for a novel that you're adding this whole visual dimension, you're turning something from words into something where you've got words, sound, and so many, usually at the end of a novel there's the author and some thank yous, whereas at the end of a film, the credits roll, as it were. I mean, how did that feel, Mohsin, as actually going into it yourself? Did you feel that when the film comes out that it's still yours in some way, or how do you relate to the film?
The film, Mira has a wonderful way, at least I think she does this with everybody she works with, but she has a wonderful way of creating a sort of inclusive way for people to be part of the project. So from the beginning, from the first time I met Mira, in fact, and really there wasn't really a bidding war. There was a personality comparison, and there was, with no disrespect to the other directors, Mira just won hands down, because it was sort of like, I'm giving this baby, my book, to someone to raise up and present to the world. And when I met Mira, that first lunch that we had together, I remember, thinking that, I can easily give it to her. She just, there was a feeling of trust. And also I really liked her. So, and that was borne out throughout the entire process. So Mira would keep coming to Lahore, engaging with the plays. When we were outside Lahore, she would bring me in to participate. My sister was there for the initial readings of the script when it was for the actors, and she would send me these text messages from New York saying, I just read a part next to Kate Hudson, who was breastfeeding at the time, her new baby. And there's very few people I think can say, probably. It was like being part of a family, actually. And so the film very much felt like something of mine. But of course, a film's a different thing from a book. And I think partly it worked well because I always felt it had to be different. I mean, it would need to be different. And how it would be different would depend, above all, on Mira's vision. And the reason why it's different is because, when you read a book, what happens is you imagine everything. So, you look at printed words, and then they become people. So for anybody who's read the novel or read Malt Smoke or whatever, people have images in their mind of, what does Genghis look like? What does, Daru look like? What does Mumtaz look like? What do these characters? And they have feelings about them, and they have... So a book really is kind of an invitation to a reader to be the director of their own movie in their own mind. A movie has to be more fully imagined. So the character actually looks like someone. And there's a soundtrack, and there's the way a camera is used. There's so many other things happening. So a movie is a much more fully imagined, in a way, experience. And they work well in different ways. I think the way that a novel works well is it allows people to create in their imaginations when you're reading a novel. And that's what I think special about novels. And what a film does is it actually transports you into a world which looks and feels like the world. And one of the most amazing things for me about the film was at one point they were building, and Mira will tell you the story of why this had to happen in Delhi and Lahore. It has to do with insurance companies and other things. But they were building Purani Narkali in Delhi. And in this lovely part of Old Delhi. And so they photographed the street. And then a team of carpenters, I don't know how many, hundreds of people, I don't know how many it was, but constructed, something about as long as this auditorium is wide, maybe longer, of basically identical stalls in which there were actual gas connections, people are making jalebis, they're making tea, there's darzies actually doing stuff. They built the world. And only if you walk around the back you think, oh, it's plywood. But if you look at it from the front, you're back in Lahore. And that's a bit of how film and books are different, is that you have to make that world. And so, for me, part of the journey of being with Mira in this adaptation, which I feel very much is also my film, was to see imagination come alive. You actually see Kiefer Sutherland playing this character, and that's strange. And Riz Ahmed, for example, he had to have his beard applied, and so every morning at 4 o'clock in the morning, Riz Ahmed would be sitting in this trailer, and he's playing Chingay, the hero of the film, and his beard is being applied, one hair at a time, which took like 3 hours. And so I said to the makeup artist, somebody was saying to her, this must be the hardest film you've ever done. And she said, no, the hardest film was Planet of the Apes.
Authors whose books are converted into movies, I have a feeling sometimes the time comes when the requirements of the big screen and a different audience changes some essence of the book. Did that happen to you, which made you uncomfortable?
Personally for me, being, in the arts is about being uncomfortable. If you're making comfortable art, as far as I'm concerned, you're not making very good art. And so the entire idea is uncomfortable. Making a film about a book is by its very nature an uncomfortable notion. But I think the two questions do tie together because, if you look at Lahore, for example, there are many things about Lahore that are uncomfortable, whether it's the pollution or the lack of electricity or, the way traffic is getting. And there are many, many constraints on the arts here. There have been for a long time. And, but Lahore continues to and has for so long produced amazing, singers, dancers, visual artists, poets, writers. That the two things actually feed off each other. I think part of the reason why Lahore is such an amazing and vibrant and really remarkable city as far as the arts is concerned is because we're forbidden from things, because things are difficult. And so much of Lahori art and Pakistani art is a response to that, whether it's directly or indirectly. So as far as your question is concerned about the adaptation, yes, it made me uncomfortable in the best possible way.
I'm very comfortable, thank you. Well, thank you all for being such a great audience, but thank you also to our